The Kentucky Small Business Development Center is a statewide, nationally accredited program that provides no-cost, confidential business coaching and training services. Whether you're just getting started or are ready to expand, we have the tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. We're part of a national network, America's SBDC, with over 1,000 centers across the nation. To learn more about how the Kentucky SBDC can serve you, please visit KentuckySBDC.com or email us at info@KentuckySBDC.com. You can also reach us by calling 888-414-7232. Thank you for joining today's webinar. The chat feature is available for you to ask questions and interact with today's speaker. Please take a moment to introduce yourself and where you are watching from today.
Welcome, everybody. I am Dave Etkin. I'm the director here at the Louisville Small Business Development Center. We are one of 13 centers across the state of Kentucky. Glad you joined us today for another Wednesday webinar. And as always, just to make sure everything's working, and we have been working diligently through some tech issues earlier, but if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the toolbar for the Zoom platform. And if you don't, just take your cursor down at the bottom and it'll hover over that, it'll pop up. And there you'll see the chat feature, if you wouldn't mind hitting that chat button. And just to make sure everything is working well, you can see us and hear us well. Just say hello, tell us your name and where you're joining us from. As always, it's always so fun to see where everybody kind of is in the universe, because we get folks from all over sometimes. So it's great to say hello to folks. And then once we get that going, as we go through our presentation today, if you have any comments or questions or things you'd like to talk to Foster about, then just put those in the chat there and we'll get to them at some point during the webinar or even at the end. So there's Bhavana. I talked to you the other day. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming. And Juan in Louisville. Kat, hi, thanks for joining us today. Pamela from Maryland, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. And then Kendall, you come a lot. I'm glad you come and visit us. It's good to see you. Kendall's with the Ohio County Tourism in Rising Sun, Indiana. Great place, so good to see you. You know, I know we've all heard this, and I've said it several times myself, but all problems are people problems, and the way to solve people problems sometimes is just direct communication. And so I've asked my good friend and one of the smartest people I know, Foster McCarl. He is a coach with Action Coach, pretty much an expert in communication and business structures. And so Foster's going to join us today. He's got a great presentation and some cool tools. So Foster, are you there today?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I'm going to replay this recording for my mom, since you said I'm one of the smartest people you know. So thank you for that. I've been telling her that for years. She just does not believe me. So it's just you and I on that fight, unfortunately.
Okay.
But thank you
I
for
don't
the
know.
introduction.
Here with the holidays coming up, maybe she'll throw you a bone this year. I don't know. Maybe. So, okay. Well, Foster, you got a great presentation. You got some great technology. So let's just jump right in and share with everybody and get going here. So I'm going to turn things over to you and let's get going.
Great. Thank you very much, David. I really appreciate it. And everybody here, I know the sound of my voice is hypnotizing, but please interrupt me. Please bring out questions. I have no problem. This actual workshop is designed as an in-person workshop. So this is the first time I'm doing it via webinar, but it's not really going to be an issue. But just to let you know that I am fully okay, as long as it's all right with the powers that be, that you go ahead and take yourself off mute or go ahead and chat, put something in the chat box. I have no problem addressing things as they come. You do not have to hold them all off to the end, because a lot of things are really in the moment and I might trip over them. If you have coffee, if anybody hasn't checked out my Fridays with Foster, which is a video I do every week, I've got probably an unhealthy coffee addiction, but I'm always interested in what people are drinking. And so right now I've just got a latte from the place right here in Nulu. So if you want to share that in the chat, that's fine too. I'm pretty easy going with that. And now for the technical stuff. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I am going to, there's two me's on here. There's the me you're going to see, and I'm starting a screen share from the other me. And what I'm doing is sharing this. So can everybody see that all right?
Gotcha. Looks good.
Or David. Okay, great. So, so as I said, Foster McCarl, I'm a business coach with Action Coach. I'm also a certified practitioner for DISC communications, which we'll talk a little bit more about. I don't know. I don't really want to talk about myself much. It's not as exciting. If you want to grab a coffee with me sometime or set something up, I'll talk to you about it. But I'd much rather just kind of get into what we're talking about today, which is communication, right? So the reason that I call this "Say What," at first it was just a placeholder, but it's funny because I realized that there are so many. This is typifies communication issues. There are so many different ways to read this. There's that, say what. There's that angry way, and then there's like the inquisitive way, like say what, and then there's the excited version, which is say what, and then there's the one that I hear when I say this in my head, which is say what. So it's perfect for an example of something that is read, the same exact words, completely different depending on who's reading it and who's interpreting it. So if you aren't have no experience with Menti, what I'd like you to do is just go ahead and follow these instructions on various pages. You will see the reminder with the code and the link. There is some, not a lot, but there are some online polls that we're going to go through, and you can go ahead and open it up on your phone. That's probably easiest, and put in the code. And then as I move the slides forward, you will also move forward with the presentation, and the polls will update. So if you have questions or concerns about that, just jump off and we can, or talk about it in the chat and we can discuss. So social media check-in, if you're not connected with me, please do so. The main reason for that, I don't really care about my numbers. What I do care about is that when I connect with somebody who is, has a specific field of expertise, and somebody else that I run into is looking for that field, I said, oh, that's right, I've got to get with Jan, or I've got to get with Dave. I can just connect you right online, specifically through LinkedIn, although I do have a Facebook presence as well, but it's not enough of a presence, in my opinion, to actually call it a presence, but it's on there. I'd much rather focus on LinkedIn. So that's really important. And that's really how I meet the majority of people. I've got some other tools and some ideas on how people can better use LinkedIn. If you're interested in those, I love talking about, I don't want to say the right way to do things, but maybe how people can learn from my mistakes. So communications is tough. I want you to take a look at this for a minute. And this is real. I actually have a friend I send this to a couple times a year, whose name is Mark with a C. How we say things is not always how they are received, right? And this is not just in marriage, which is it's a whole different ballgame. But with everybody we run into, the way we communicate, what is said, what is heard. I mean, it varies based on how much sleep I got last night. If I ate breakfast this morning, I will hear something you say to me different than maybe if I had not had breakfast, or if I had breakfast, or got a good night's sleep, or did or didn't have a coffee. For instance, I know I'm not allowed to talk to my wife about anything in the morning until she's had her first coffee, at my own risk. I keep testing those waters though, and I'll let you know it's not worth it. So, but the messages that I bring across are received in a completely different way. So please understand, for the first time in history, we have 5 generations in the workplace, right? 5 in the workplace. Think about that. We've got traditionalists, right? That's this, ultimately in the next 5 years, that's going to be the smallest workforce. The baby boomers are going to be exiting from the workforce altogether. The Generation X, which is my generation, is going to make up the largest percentage of workforce leadership, and millennials will make up the largest workforce percentage in general, and then Generation Z will be the fastest growing within the next 5 years. Interestingly enough, as I was doing this, I realized that I have 4 generations in my house. So I'm a Gen X. My wife is a Gen Z, or my wife is a millennial. My daughter is a Gen Z, and I have 2 little dudes that are technically, they're called Alpha, the Alphas, which is the next one down. And then I'm not sure if it's Beta or Omega. We'll have to see. But anyway, so remember I was telling you before about a Menti. So go ahead and jump in, and I just want to see the percentages that are made up here. Go on to menti.com on your phone or in another window, punch the code in, and go ahead and vote so we can see who is here. So I know who. It's just interesting for me to see who I'm working with. All right, so we have some of my people, which is great. Boomers, excellent. And I'm not sure how many we have on today, Dave, because that's probably on a different screen, but in the bottom right-hand corner kind of shows who has and who hasn't. So if you haven't, I'll give you a few more seconds. Go ahead. If you're confused by the question, let me know. Although you shouldn't be. I even actually put, you can see, I even actually put the various recording and sound devices that we listened to growing up. Although Gen X technically would say Gen X, I would have a Sony Walkman, but I think we're the last generation to experience the 8-track. So so we got a decent spread, no Gen Zs and no traditionalists, which kind of makes sense. I think it's as we see from the previous screen, other than the Gen Zs, this is a decent cross section, right? Except what we will see in the next 5 years is we'll see a higher percentage of millennials. The Gen X will be there, but will be in more of a leadership. Although it really depends on how you look at it. Time doesn't necessarily mean that you're leadership materials. Just because you're older doesn't mean you're actually going to achieve that. But thank you to everybody who went ahead and listed that. So times are different. When I was growing up, as probably with a lot of you or some other Gen X's here, I was I'd leave in the morning from the house when I was a kid. My parents had no idea what I was doing all day. We would actually, my friends and I would, escape death or serious injury several times a week, if not more. And it wasn't always like exciting stuff. Sometimes we'd get stuck in a drainage pipe in the woods because we wanted to see what was on the other side. Silly stuff like that. We had no idea. And I was called sometimes you would come home like when the street lights came on, when it was, the sun went down, or whatever the case might be, or there was a firehouse close to us. And when I think the 5 o'clock whistle went, my parents had a bell like this, and they used to ring the bell for me to come home. I'm 100% serious. And you can hear this bell for like 3 or 4 miles. So there was no pretending like, oh, I didn't hear the bell. Now, the funny thing is, this is actually the same way my father was called home. So this is big cast iron bell on top of an upended railroad tie. And we didn't think anything of it, but they had no idea what we were doing. Now, all I have to do is pull up my phone. It's called Find My iPhone, but I can, in two taps, I can find out where my daughter is, where my wife is, and everything. So the speed at which we are able to relate to the real world is at an all-time high. And I was raised in a family business, which is another word for child labor. So like my first job, I was, I think 9. Well, I mean, I had a paper route when I was younger, but a lot of people might be able to relate to this. I was in the warehouse. I was sweeping floors. I was doing things like that. I was making whatever they gave me at the time, which technically, I mean, it was not really legal, but I would take whatever they gave me, right? Because I, needed money for candy, right? Penny candy at the time. but that's much, much different from what's happening today. So when I was, 11 years old, I was, we had an HVAC company. So I was removing gaskets and fixing come-alongs and painting gang boxes and stuff like that. But it's a little different than this gentleman here. His name is Ryan Kaji. If you're familiar with him, you can go ahead and raise your hand or just feel good about the fact that you know him. Ryan started a page on YouTube at the age of 9. He is, I think he's 11 years old now, and he lives in Cypress, Texas. He started what's called an unboxing channel, right? So if you don't know what unboxing is, first, it's not for a group of people against the sport of boxing. That's not it. It's much more elementary. It's literally taking a camera, pointing it at a box and opening the box and what's inside. So shoes, toys, computers, whatever. So Ryan Kaji is worth over $40 million. How can we possibly relate to a generation that sees this as a viable way to earn money? I mean, in my day, the only way that anybody was worth $40 million at age 11, they had to come from money, and somebody died and they inherited it. Nobody was making $40 million for something like this. It was just completely different. So the whole scope of the economic world has changed from traditionalists to boomers to millennials and Gen X on the way down. So we have to be very aware of just the context in which we think about the business world and the economy. It's much different than it's ever been. Who'd have thought 5-10 years ago that this would be the phrase that we have uttered more than any other phrase over the last 3 years? I don't know that I ever maybe said this once, right? Before 2009, 2020, I had a group of guys and we would stay in touch with some Zoom just before the pandemic. But I mean, think about how ridiculous this is. It's like several times a day, you're still on mute, you're muted, you're muted. I mean, right there, just the ridiculousness and the shift in communication is encapsulated in a phrase that we never would have thought that we would use, let alone something that was just a major form of ongoing communication now with Zoom. It's crazy and inconceivable. Again, the context has changed. So what we end up doing is what? Now we deal with symptoms instead of problems, right? We have all these communications issues. It's really easy to focus on symptoms instead of problems, especially with communication. If we look at, say, medicine, symptoms are really easy to see, right? Because we've got a temperature, maybe we're sweating, right? We may have actual pain. We can look at weight loss, weight gain. There are things that are visible that we can see. Okay. On the other side, when we deal with communication, we have a lot of different symptoms, right? We've got maybe things that we look at as what are ultimately end results. So we have gross revenue. We may have conversion rates. We have different things that we can track with our financials. And if those aren't really happening, we like to focus on those if we're not getting the results that we want, but they're not really the problem, right? So in medicine, you get 14 years of schooling to determine, how to decipher these symptoms. You've got 45 minutes with me today. So hopefully you'll be able to get something figured out from that and how we can look at dealing more with the problems than with the symptoms that we see within our businesses. So we're going to talk about responsibilities, and hopefully I might be able to pull this off, but maybe not since I'm on a different one. There's a wonderful video that was an old school FedEx commercial, if you remember, not the ones with like the FedEx Cup, which are hilarious with golf. But this one's called Responsibilities. And this is in specifically dealing with the responsibilities of a team. So if you get a chance to look it up, great. If not, I'll probably find a way to put it on here. I just don't want to mess with all the sound and everything else that we have going on with multiple screens. But it's really a challenge to have any kind of an idea of what these responsibilities are that we're supposed to experience and that we're supposed to talk to people we're capable of doing. So the symptoms really are the results of, a couple different things, three different things. I'm afraid that I'm either going to lose what I've got, I'm not going to get what I think I need, or I'm going to be misunderstood and judged and end up alone. Or end up alone, meaning within the workplace, either I won't have people on my side, or I'll be that kind of, I don't want to say pariah in a meeting, but it's like, oh, so-and-so, here they go again, right? They have got some crazy idea because I'm misunderstood. And these are those symptoms. This is what causes those symptoms. I have these fears and I'm lacking something in the workplace, right? And the tensions that we have are really, really easy to see. So for example, we've got drama, right? We've got like Bob and Sally, they don't really like each other. They're somewhat confrontational and you can kind of feel it. Back in the day, you could feel it in the hallways. Some of us are hybrid and getting back to it. We can definitely feel it in the meetings. And in fact, it may lead to us not having as many meetings, or people not participating in meetings, right? Because they don't want to deal with the drama. And so what ends up happening is our organizations hopefully continue to scale, but the information by which we were supposed to be transferring back and forth openly between individuals and between teams is stifled or shrinking as a result of drama that's not being dealt with. And it doesn't have to be anything really big and grandiose. It could just be like somebody gets their feelings hurt, so they just kind of shut down. You're like, man, so-and-so used to have such great ideas, and then what happened? I don't know. They just stopped. And so they may not feel comfortable talking about this openly. Another thing we look at is unhealthy competition. Well, what we look at there is if we don't have a healthy team environment, you could have two people vying for the head of a department. They're not communicating with each other. They're not trying to help each other out, right? They're definitely not working together. And the worst thing is they may actually look at sabotaging one another in order to get a promotion or to help grow a certain number or KPI for their team. And there's no way to sabotage an individual within a team or a company without the company also suffering. So sometimes we may look and see that this is just an issue between these two people, and it's really not. Ultimately, it has an effect. One of the worst things that happens is these type of combative, combustible relationships. They drive away A-grade talent within your teams. And you don't really know what's happening. These people will just leave. And if you don't have exit interviews or anything like that, you don't know why they've actually left. And it can be really sad because they could be amazing team members that you don't realize why, but they're just no longer engaged or involved if they do in fact stay. So let's talk about some different measurements for success in business. And I mentioned a couple of these before. So we've got gross revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit, conversion rates, which can come in many different forms. So the number of leads coming into the top of the funnel, converting at a certain percentage to a number of sales meetings or sales opportunities, and then those opportunities converting into actual sales. Cash flow, which is a really, really important one, overhead expenses, and then of course the most important one being net profit. If you haven't heard the saying that I love, you should write it down, which is revenue is for vanity and profit is for sanity, but cash is king. So remember that. We like to talk about revenue when we go to networking events, talk about how big our companies are and how much we've grown. We don't talk about net profit, and we definitely don't talk about cash flow, okay? Those are the things that are the important measurements for success. So one of the issues that we have with this, if you haven't read Patrick Lencioni, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which this is great because I normally don't have my books right behind me. So Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is wonderful, in addition to another one he wrote called Death by Meetings. But he talks about this bottom level of trust, this dysfunction, which is an absence of trust, right? So it's kind of, I equate this a lot to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So like the base level of survival for Maslow at the bottom of the triangle. It's really the same thing with teams and communication. The base level of all communications within an organization is trust. If we do not have trust, we cannot even begin to communicate appropriately. So just quickly, I want to give you some examples of things. If you're wondering, do we have trust in our organization? Here are the things, some actual statements that you will hear from a trustworthy environment in your team. Number one, sorry, they're not numbered in a specific order. I'm sorry. Number two, I need help. Number three, I don't know. Four, I don't understand. And some semblance of, can you assist me, right? Which is kind of like help. If you have trust, you will hear those in meetings, not just one-on-one meetings. It's easier to have trust with one-on-one because you don't trust anybody else in the room, maybe vying for your job or trying to take credit for your work, whatever the case may be, or everybody's just scared. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is actually belligerent in their efforts to, push forward some hidden agenda to take over the company or the department. But a lot of times, just a certain level of discomfort. So, Frederick Reichheld has a wonderful quote. He was a strategic advisor, strategist. So without trust, there can be no loyalty. And without loyalty, there can be no true growth. And so I asked myself the question, what's true growth? So what I like to call it is consistently improving specific relevant metrics in a scalable model. Growth does not always mean size. Growth does not always mean top level. It's about improving. So sometimes growth is measured in efficiency. It's measured in a reduction of cost of goods sold. It's measured in an increase in net profitability with a reduction in gross revenue, right? So these are all things that we have to look at. So how do we actually put this into practice? Well, true communication, it's the response you receive. So think about that for a second. If I'm talking at somebody for, 15 or 20 minutes, is that really communicating? What I do know is I need to look at what the response is from them to determine the level and quality of our communication. Okay. Because what we have to be careful of with communication is that knowing why it doesn't happen. There's a lack of knowledge. How do we communicate? Right? Am I even, have I ever even worked on a knowledge of better ways to communicate and improve the way that I communicate? Number two, oh man, it takes effort. You could probably hear, I'm a pretty fast talker, pretty fast thinker. I like to do things quickly. In order for me to engage in an increased level of communication, it requires pause. It requires me to listen, which is real hard when I'm trying to explain why I'm so excited to be meeting with you. And there's 1,000 other examples I can talk to you about that will hopefully alleviate this concern of being, a fast communicator who doesn't listen. A lot of times they just get excited, and I'm relating to something that you said. I used to live in that part of town, and this lady used to live next to me, and she had the dog that whatever. And you're like, dude, we're like on point 4 in the agenda. Can we just stick with it? And here I am just trying to strengthen our communication. It takes effort for me to stop. It takes effort. So next, there's just speed. I mean, if you remember Moore's Law, which is largely obsolete, but Moore's Law used to state that the speed at which data will be communicated via computer processors was going to more than double every year, right? They're going to get smaller. Communication is going to be faster. How many of us that are on here now have actually done a speed test online to find out how fast my computer is going at home? How fast is my internet connection? Awesome. How many of us have ever done a quality test in our communication? Like, no, Denzel Washington said it great. He's like, the question is, do you want to be first or do you want to be right? Anymore, people just want to be first, and then they'll just kind of clean it up on page 7. So it requires us to really slow down and look at quality. And then there's accountability. Oh my gosh, accountability is not just about, hitting somebody when they do something that's not correct, right? Accountability is also about acknowledging when somebody does something right and helping them to become more accountable to the results, as opposed to running around with a ruler, waiting to smack somebody's hands because they're not doing things the right way. That's a challenge. So this is real interesting, Foster. What's the solution, right? Wow. This is very entertaining, and there's a lot of neat things, a couple good quotes, but what do we do with this? So the Navy SEALs have a wonderful expression: slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Okay, and what this is rooted in is the idea that if a boat is going really, really, really fast, it's going to start shaking and probably end up capsizing. And that's even on the smoothest of seas. As soon as seas get rough, I mean, you actually have to slow down more. So the idea is that if I slow down, I can actually move faster. If I slow down my communication, I can get better results that will save time. Stephen Covey calls it the speed of trust. And this gets back to the trust factor from Lencioni. So just paraphrasing Stephen Covey real quick, if I don't trust you, right? So if David and I have a meeting and I don't exactly trust David 100%, I don't think he's really on my team. When he communicates something to me, I have to run it through this filter in my head to what I think he really means based on a potential hidden agenda that he's got. Then I have to run it through another filter in my response based on what I think he really means and what I am willing to allow him to know about my thoughts. Think about how much longer that takes in communication. And then if he doesn't trust me, it compounds and compounds and compounds. So without that, we need to slow down, and we need to work on the important tenets of communication so we can trust one another. This is my favorite one, unfortunately. This is the one that I find myself involved in more times than not. I may be lost, but I'm making great time. I'm the guy driving on the freeway, literally, that's like, I will not slow down and make traffic stop for me because I don't know where I'm going. I'll take the next exit down and take my medicine because I didn't plan accordingly. I'm not that kind of a guy. I will drive 10 miles further if I don't have to use my brakes rather than sit in traffic. And the problem for me is that has translated, shockingly enough, over my life into communication. Well, how many people do you think like to be communicated with like that? It just doesn't work. It does not give me the results I want. All right. So if you're, I don't think I have, normally I'd ask for a show of hands, but I don't have that up on my screen right now. But, go ahead and a show of hands if you want, for people that are familiar with DISC. We're going to do an exercise on DISC, and I'm actually going to ask for volunteers. We'll see how that goes. There are 4 core styles of DISC: dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. I prefer critical thinking instead of conscientious. My wife, albeit she is conscientious, I definitely think of her as more of a critical thinker than being conscientious. She is more willing to tell me the way things should be and what the proper protocol is than following a system for the system's sake. So what's important? So D's, high D's as we call them, they deal with problems and challenges. High I's, they like to focus on people and contacts. S's, pace and consistency, and conscientiousness or critical thinkers are procedures and constraints. That's what's most important. So let's talk about a simple way to look at these. What we really do is we look at pace versus priority. Right. So there's the pace is slow and fast. The priority is task or people. So C's and D's are going to be more task oriented. So that's above the line there. Task oriented. They're focused with achieving the goal. It's not about how people feel. Right. The S's and the I's below that horizontal, they are really concerned with the people side of it, the feeling side of it. Not just that something gets done and how it gets done, but how the people feel who are doing it, right? On the other side, we have the axis of pace, so slower versus faster. D's and I's, we want things real fast, right? D's and I's are like, let's hurry up, let's hurry up, let's hurry up. And that's how we make decisions. It's a little bit ready, shoot, aim, depending on the level that you're at. And S's and C's, we are much slower and deliberate for different reasons in our decision-making process, okay? C's are more deliberate because they do not want to be wrong. They cannot be wrong. S's want to be more deliberate because what they end up deciding will have an effect on the people around them and on the team, which could be positive or negative. They don't want to rock the boat. They do not want things to be negative, okay? D's and I's on the other side, we just, D's want things fast because we want to win. D's want to win. We want to be first at all costs, right? I's, we just want to be seen. D's don't care as much about, winning the trophy. They just want to be listed as the fastest, right? But I's, they want to get the trophy. They want to be seen. We like to be out front, okay? So here's an easy way to describe it. So I am at a cabin in the woods with a high D, a high I, a high S, and a high C, okay? And I say, you know what? I think we should go down by the water. Okay, so as soon as I say that, the D is already gone. They're off and running. They're in the lake. They're the first ones there. They're in the water, which wasn't even actually the goal, but they heard water and then they ran. Okay, the I turns around and says, oh, this is going to be great. We'll get a bunch of beers. Let me get some neighbors. We'll get some people over here because they're concerned about the social aspect of it. They want it to be fun and a big party. The S says, well, this is going to be great. I'm going to make sure to get food because people might be hungry. I'm going to get some towels because people are going to be swimming. Let's get some firewood together because people are going to be cold afterwards. We want to make sure to take care of that. And the C's are going, whoa, does anybody know what's in the water? Is it cold? Why are we jumping in? How long are we staying in? Is there any way to even get out? Like why are we even doing this? How long are we going to stay in the water, right? So the C's are more concerned with answering all their questions before they move forward, as opposed to the D, they don't ask questions and they don't even really hear the goal. They just go, right? So some of us could relate to some of these in different ways. In general, so D's, they want challenges. They like to be in authority positions. Their emotions are anger, so they come out as angry and aggressive whenever they're pushed. And their fears of being taken advantage of, also known as losing. They don't like that. Okay, the I's, they're really focused on social relationships and the social environment. Optimism and trust are really, really important to them. They're really easy to trust. They've never met a stranger, and they're really excited about what's next, and they give people the benefit of the doubt. The problem with that, of course, is if they lose social status in any way, shape, or form, or even if they think they do, if they're in a group of people and they walk away and they hear laughing and they think it's about them, it's crushing, right? S's, systems, team, stable environment. We talked about that. What S's really don't like is confrontation. So anybody who's a high S that's in a position of leadership or management who is responsible for dealing with conflict within team, it's a really, really big challenge. There are ways that we can get around that, but just understand that without the right tools, the expectations on a high S in that, or a high S in those situations, it can be really challenging. And their emotions are patience, non-expression. So if you ever want to lose at poker, it's going to be to a high S because you won't be able to read them. My wife is an SC. So needless to say, she moves, her decision-making is at a slower and honestly probably better pace than mine, higher quality. But for her, if I push her too far, she shuts down. And it looks like she's emotionally uninvolved. And that's this non-expression. She isn't, she's just had enough and she needs to collect herself. So the loss of security, what it talks about here, this sudden change, rocking of the boat, big challenge. High C's, wow, there are rules. There's a reason we follow these rules, and we have to analyze the information before we make a decision. Their emotions, fear, concern, very low risk, and they do not ever want to be wrong. And this is not like a bravado, like I'm so smart, I don't want to be wrong. But to be honest, all the C's that I've talked to, and if you'll let me know if you can relate to this, if you are proven wrong in a certain situation, you actually now have to go back in your mind and look at all the decisions that you have made to determine if those are also right, because now it's questioning accuracy and the quality of all your decisions. So for instance, my wife made it, something happened and she said, oh, we have to do this or that, or this is how that works. I said, okay. And then I went to try that. It didn't work. And I came back to her. I said, oh, you know what? I think you were wrong about this. We're not supposed to do it this way. We're just, just a side comment. I wasn't saying you were wrong. And she looked at me and she said, no, I actually wasn't wrong about that. She said, you didn't give me enough information. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Right. But in her mind, it was totally true. Like, based on the information she had, she made the best decision she possibly could. Okay. So discs, any famous TV show that you've ever seen has all 4 discs in it in some way, shape, or form, even going back to Lord of the Rings and movies, Star Trek. I mean, they are there. So if you ever want to find some fun information and wonder why, Friends was, so close to True for You, or some of these other sitcoms, it's because they're all represented. You can find a lot of this online if you look. We won't go into it now, but now I want you to jump on, and I'm interested, who am I talking to here? Because this is actually something, if you go ahead online, I want you to answer this. This is actually something that when we get into, the recruiting and hiring process, we get to see on the front end the kind of people that we're dealing with, how we are communicating with them, and how they need to be communicated with moving forward. If I'm a high D and I try and communicate with a C the way I communicate, that is not going to work. Okay, so we've got a decent spread. ISC, have a sip of coffee. Okay, hey, we got another D. Good job. S's, okay. Any more S's? S's are tough. If you want to upset an S, sorry, S's. When I do this live, I ask the S. I said, "Would you please just stand up for a minute?" And they stand up, and I look at the rest of the crowd, and I said, "Just to let you know, this person hates me right now, just because I asked them to stand up." Because that honestly is it's like a confrontation. Just being up alone in front of the group, it's just really tough. Asking an I to take a back seat and not be the table announcer when we have table time, and not grabbing the mic and stuff like that, it's really tough. And D's not being in control and making decisions for their team, oh man, it's really tough. And I'm sorry, what was that? So Kendall, I saw that. Come on, let me see if I can. Can someone be? Oh, yes, Juan, absolutely. So let me explain. So I'm talking a lot of generalities right now with these and stereotypes. Just because I'm a high S and I don't like confrontation, doesn't mean if somebody grabs my child and starts running that I'm not going to go after them. Oh, I wish I weren't so much of an S. I could save my child. But honestly, what happens is there's 2 different sides, and everybody on this today is actually going to have an opportunity to take a free assessment. Yay, Foster, we love you. Awesome. What you're going to see from that is you're going to see what you are in general, but what happens, very situational, right? I can be dealing with a lunchroom situation, right? That's going to be different at work than at home or with family for obvious reasons there. But even within the context of the work time lunch situation, I will actually have, if the person on the other side is a high C versus a high I, I'm going to have different challenges or fewer challenges there than if it were some other communication style, right? So yeah, we can definitely be different types, and there's an opportunity if you want to upgrade your report to a full DISC assessment, and I can meet with you and go over it. We'll talk about the 2 different sides of it and all that. I'm not I guess that's as salesy as this gets, but really, I mean, what it is it still gives you a good idea, but you have to understand it is very situational, right? But I think you'll still get a lot of it. We are all a combination of this, and the more we dig into it, the easier it is for us to really slide in and out of different communication styles depending on who we are with. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so there's 3 general steps to better communication. Okay, knowledge, self-awareness, adaptation. So knowledge we're getting right now. Right, we're saying, oh, so now I understand a little bit more. This is DISC. It is what it is. DISC it's not the only tool out there. It's one of the best ones that I have found that works well. I have yet to come across somebody, maybe once in a blue moon, that this doesn't apply to, or they answer the questions and they're just way off. But most of the time, it's pretty spot on. The next step is this self-awareness. So where do I exist within the realm of DISC and communication, just how I like to be communicated with, whether you want to call it DISC or not, that's secondary, but how do I like to be communicated? Because we don't use the golden rule, right? The golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. Do you guys want to be treated the way Foster does? There's 2 Ds on here. Not even they want to be treated the way I want to, or communicated with the way I want to, let alone everybody else. So I have to be very self-aware of how I will come off instantly, because if I don't think about it and I just start communicating at you, we're going to have issues. Next, we have adaptation. So what that is that's understanding the idea of the platinum rule, which is we communicate with others and treat others the way they want to be treated. So I have to have an understanding of the way David wants to be communicated with, the way my wife wants to be communicated with, and adapt to that style of communication, and not be that 13-year-old. What do I have to change the way I want to communicate? Because I want the relationship to work, because I have a work initiative that I want to push through, because I see something that's going to help us better achieve our goal. Why wouldn't I want to adapt the way I communicate, right? It helps everybody, okay? So I need a volunteer for each. I need a high D, I need a high I, I need a high S, and I need a C. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work, other than maybe I can do it like this. And then David, maybe you can pull off each one. So the high Ds, what I'm looking for is, okay. Yeah, and make sure I don't think I can see everybody. Can we get other people's videos on potentially?
No.
Okay. All right.
That.
So how about audio?
Let's see. Let me check here. Possibly.
Okay. If we can, great. If not, we'll make do. No video. Is that no video, please? No video. Don't worry. We're not gonna capture your computer. So we can kind of keep short and leave this part open for questions. And yeah, if we can get people's audio on, that would be great. But in general, what we would do is I would have one person from each communication style step up. And when I get on stage, I actually have 4 stools that they sit on, which the S's absolutely love. The D's are always the first ones up there. The I's are really excited that they get to sit in front of the crowd. And the C's are just glad they're there because they're going to set the record straight, because I don't know what I'm talking about in their opinion, which is fine. So what I do want to talk about with this that each of you can identify with, okay, email. So if we have a high D out there that would like to raise their hand, and maybe if we can get them on audio, David, I want to hear from you. What's most important about an email for you? When you receive an email, what are you looking for? How are you discerning the value of that email? Let me know if we have one. If not, David, I can just carry through, because I know what each of these feels, because I'm part of it.
Yeah, I have a couple folks with C's, but no D's. Okay.
D. Carletta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see if I can press this button here.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, no can do. Okay, you just have to chat with us, I guess, because
Hold on one
She
second.
should be able to now. Carletta, are you
Yeah,
there?
there we go.
yes. Can y'all hear me?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, I'm on. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we have Carletta. She's a D.
Go ahead, Carletta. So what's important to you when you look at it, when you look at an email?
The subject line.
Now, why? How is that? Please
What
explain.
they write in the subject, it determines if I'm gonna open it.
You're even gonna open it. So listen, people, if you're communicating, thank you so much for your honesty. If you're communicating with a high D, you better have a good, concise, short, direct subject line. And let me tell you, Carla, you will probably relate to this. I had somebody on stage and I said, yeah, and they probably would help if they had like an exclamation point for urgent. And they looked at me, it was 100% serious. They were like, no, they better have 3. And if it doesn't have 3 exclamation points for urgent, like I'm not even going to open it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Now, just so everybody understands, that's just to get a high D to open the email. Once they open it, now what happens? What are you looking for now when you open the email?
The first subject line, it needs to get pretty much right to the subject. Like before this meeting, I just opened one. It was like important, right? So I opened it.
Yeah.
But then it said, you don't have to answer right now. I just want, and I was like, oh, well, what you writing important for?
And you were probably like, see ya, I'll look at you later. If I don't need to answer this right now, I don't have time, right? How great. So here's the thing. Let's get a high C on with us too. Can we have a high C and take them off of mute if at all possible? Anybody who's willing to admit, anybody who's looked at this and said, Foster, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, wait, hold on. We got Medina.
Yep.
Medina?
All right, Medina.
Hello.
No video. Yeah, so please no video. That's okay. We got it. So what is your process like when you are creating an email or drafting an email?
It usually takes a very long time for me to draft.
Why is that?
emails. You know,
why is that?
The joke that this could have been an email. No, it's much quicker for me to communicate in person, because in my emails, I want everything to be perfectly communicated so that I'm not misunderstood. And I am, as concise as I can be, but also explaining so that I'm understood and communicating clearly and considering their time and their feelings. And it's a hot mess.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And Kathy's like confirmed. So what's funny about this? So you are potentially as a high C, one of those people that has a lot of drafts in your folder that you maybe go back to. Yeah. So and you heard what a D is looking for, right?
Right.
Subject line. Like, if you don't give me a good subject line, right, I'm not even going to open it. You're like, okay, well, that's fun because I just spent 4 days drafting this email on and off and changing it and updating it and moving it around. And on top of that, guess what? There's a lot of information there and it's 3 paragraphs long. Let me tell you, if you want a high D to read an email and you have a lot of information in there, you better put bullet points at the top. Because if you don't, they may read the first and the last. And if you're a high D and you know that you have somebody like Medina that is sending an email to you, you better slow down and prepare to read the whole thing and get back to them. Because if you don't, they are going to feel like you don't care. They are going to feel like what you were focusing on is it's not important, right? So it is extremely, and I have to make sure there we go. I think make sure my headset didn't pop off.
You're good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me now? All right.
Good.
Sorry about that. I got it. Hopefully it hasn't been happening on and off, but so the situation is like, you will feel like I don't really care about what you're saying, right? Okay, let's get a high I. Let me get a high I example. Who wants to jump in there? This should be a battle because usually eyes want to be, and they want to turn their camera on so everybody can see them, which is fine. I'm high eye. So what high, unless you just want to disprove me and you're being difficult as a high eye, which is fine. We do that sometimes too. Do we have any high eyes that want to jump in? Okay, if not, and I have no problem sharing my experience. So let me tell you about a high eye. If you're sending an email to a high eye, you really better ask them about their cat. You better have a greeting. Good morning. How was your weekend, et cetera, et cetera. Because if you just jump right into business with a high eye, they're going to feel like you don't care about them as a person. I know this sounds silly, but it's true. When people are actually looking at how they're being communicated with, it means that you don't really care about me. I'm just a tool in your tool belt to get stuff done, right? Which is ridiculous. Obviously, you care enough about me to email me, right? But if you don't ask me how I'm doing, it's a big problem, right? And for S's, in lieu of time, so I'll just jump forward with the S's. I apologize, although the S's don't really care because they don't want to jump forward, and they're fine. They're fine with not speaking, and being not speaking, being put on the spot. S's don't like that, so I'll cut you some slack here. S's, if I am going to send an email, and the rest of these multiple recipients. Great question. So I'm trying to get my, hold on a second. I'm trying to get my, there we go. So the same thing goes with calls, meetings, and then conflict, right? With this, it's the same type of thing. So, so first thing, so S's, don't expect an S to make a quick decision. If I'm asking somebody, hey, listen, I need you to do this. I need this by the end of the day for an S, I'm inviting trouble. Doesn't mean that I can't request that of an S, but what I need to do is I need to say, hey, here's the deal. I know you didn't start this project. I know it's unreasonable what I'm asking, and you don't have a lot of time, but if you could do this by the end of the day, I would really mean a lot to me. And S will be much more likely to assist in the process as opposed to jumping in and saying, hey, I need this by this afternoon, okay? Okay, so let me jump. So yeah, conflict, high D's, we search for it. High I's, we don't want to look bad. So it's really can be long and strung out and passive aggressive. S's just want to exit stage left. They don't like it. They don't want anything to do with it. And we definitely don't want to continue to be part of ongoing conflict. We don't like to rock the boat. C's, it's just emotions are messy. People are annoying and they just get in the way of the process, right? So multiple recipients. So what I would probably suggest is when we have multiple recipients, you may have to look at things in a hierarchical form. Who is the most important person on the email? And we cater to them first, but we don't completely discount everybody. And if there are multiple people of the same level of importance, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're addressing each of those. So bullet points, good morning, slow decision making, but there's a point with a good subject line. We can nail all of those at once. And the fastest way to failure is to try and make everybody happy at the same time. So you kind of have to pick and choose your battles. What I want you to do is, let's see if I get this moving forward. Okay, I want you to go ahead and pull this up. You can click on the link and save it, or take a picture of the scan on your phone, and it should pull up without a problem. Everybody on this gets a free disc assessment. It's just a summary report. It's not an in-depth. The in-depth one's like 36 pages or whatever. If you want to talk about stuff afterwards or at any time whatsoever, I'm more than happy to discuss this. I absolutely love this, just having people jump on, and thank you very much for having me, David, but having people jump on and they're like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel when I get the email. Really, like, yeah, I need the subject line. Like it's just nice because I think we feel like there's not something wrong with us. Just because I've had clients that I'm like, that their job for the week is like keep the door to your office open and let people come in and talk to you. And they're like, oh, because they don't really like people. I mean, they love their teams. They'll do anything for them, but I don't want to be interrupted with stories about soccer and blah, blah, blah. We have work to do. I said, well, your people need that from you right now. They've said they have, et cetera. So this gives you a really good opportunity to take a look at this. Know that you're not alone. I'm happy to reach out. I'll probably send a couple of emails out later on for if anybody wants to schedule time or just talk about this stuff. I absolutely love it. And then most important, you are not alone. Okay. So with that, I think we're done. Thank you for dealing with some of the technical difficulties. Oh, one thing I will do is either I'll send it to David, or if you guys put your email addresses in or whatever, I'll send you the link to the video. Unfortunately, that video, the FedEx, it's an old one and it's tough to get it in real high def. But yeah, really, really excited. Thank you very much, David. And I think I'm a minute over.
You're right on time. Yeah. So if anybody out there, if you have any just other comments or questions, you can just kind of just put them in the chat now. We have a couple of seconds we can talk about. So Kat asks, what businesses do you specialize in?
I like how she says, Mark. Actually, Mark
Yeah.
was the example from the beginning. It's Foster. I really don't specialize in specific businesses per se, more than I do individuals. I've got experience in service industries, restaurants, wealth managers, construction. I mean, you name it, I've probably done it. But I've got currently now have a couple therapy practices and CPAs. And so what I do care about, Kat, is I care about individuals that want to change. So you have to want to change, although all I really care about is I'll sit down and have a coffee with anybody. And if there's an opportunity to connect, great. If not, then maybe I can connect you with somebody who can help. So, but you can connect with me offline. I'm happy to talk to you more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, Foster is a great resource, so I would suggest you reach out. Okay. Well, Foster, it's been so much fun. It's always great to see you.
Thanks. Really appreciate it, David.
Yeah. So we'll do this again real soon. This is great stuff. This is very very timely here. This last few months, when we get to the fourth quarter, I'm always thinking about things about coming up, the next year, and what I need to do to improve and what to look at. And this is a great tool to maybe get some clarity on some things that you might want to put on your to-do list and your strategic plan for the upcoming year. So make sure you reach out to Foster.
One other thing, speaking of that, David, I've got, so every quarter I do a quarterly planning with my mainly my clients, but for the people that are on this call now, if you put your email address in there, and I'm sure, David, you guys can collect those for me,
Yep.
the emails. I'll send you out an invite. It will be no cost to you if you want to come. It's a half day quarterly planning, and when you walk out, you actually have a full, one-page plan for Q1. Usually really important. Again, is this where you thought you would be in November, a year ago? So for a lot of people, the answer is no, me included. Right. So we just like to stick to that. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for everyone for joining us. And thank you again, Foster. It's been great. It's been awesome today. So we'll see everybody next Wednesday. And thanks for joining us today. So have a good Wednesday. Talk to you soon.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, David. Thanks, team. Have a great day.